is your name?
What was that? Oh,
DJ Bush.
yeah, Bush, USA.
Do I call you Bush?
Yeah, you can call me Jay.
Yeah, got it.
And welcome to Rock and Recovery. I'm your host, Jay, and today I've got a special guest. I've been waiting for months to have this person on. We got our schedule finally worked out. It's Adriene Caldwell. Hello, Miss Caldwell.
Hey, Jay, thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
Thank you for being a guest. I really appreciate that.
It's a privilege to be here. As you said, I'm Adriene Caldwell. I've written a book. It's Unbroken: Life Outside the Lines. It's the story of my life from early childhood to early 20s. And this covers trigger warnings as well as my trauma list. So during that time, I was either the witness to or the victim of the sexual assault of a young girl, the drowning death of another, emotional and physical abuse, extreme poverty, mental illness, homelessness, horrifically abusive foster care, bulimia, pedophilia, death, suicide, incest, and last but not least, drug and alcohol addiction.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it feels crazy having lived it. It's it was kind of one of those things. It was generational. It was cyclical. It's been handed down in my family. The poor coping mechanisms, the complete lack of communication and ability to articulate feelings, emotions.
How long did it take you to write the book?
It's taken me 5 years, and it's been hell. Oh my God, it's been so bad writing it because I am like expert level at repressing emotions. And I had just filed these traumas away. Like, think of putting them in a box on a shelf behind a door, like they were down, like deeply, deeply repressed. And writing about it made me take the box out. I had to take the trauma out and look at it and live with it and sit with it again. And
what gave you the courage? How'd you get the courage to write that book?
Well, so it comes with a little bit of a backstory. I was awarded the state. I went into foster care at 12 years old. My mother did relinquish rights, so I was awarded the state until I was 18. And a couple of years later, they sent me this notice saying, hey, unless you want a copy of your case file, we're going to destroy the records. And me, of course, give me a piece of paper, I will have it 30 years from now. I anything paper I keep, I collect. So I said, yeah, give it to me. And then for the next 20 years, it sat underneath my couch because every few years I'd try to go through it and look at it, and it was just too triggering. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. And so at 40 years old, I finally sat down and I started going through it. And as I mentioned in the trigger warnings, I went through horrific abuse at the hands of a foster parent. And I got so angry going through those documents. And I reached out to lawyers, to the state, to the counties. I just wanted, one, to make sure that she no longer had access to foster kids. And two, I wanted there to be some sort of consequence for what she had done to me and the other girls. And I just kept getting told there's nothing you can do. And then the other factor, I went to 13 schools by the time I graduated high school. So I got very good at meeting people and keeping the conversation all about the other person, never on me. And on the rare occasions when I would open up and I would start sharing, from those traumas, I would always get the same response. You should write a book. I've been hearing that since I was 16 years old. So combine my anger and frustration with the system and with the feedback that I should tell my story, those two things mixed. And that's when I started writing. That's where I really got the impetus. I was like, okay, I am going to tell my story. And it's hard and it's ugly. I don't gloss over the parts that make me look bad. In fact, when I had beta readers when I was about halfway through writing it, and they said, "Hey, Adrienne, you kind of come off sounding like the villain, like an antagonist." And I said, "Well, yeah, that's because I was. I did some really horrible things and hurt people, and I'm honest and upfront about that in the book." And they wanted me to like soften it, and I refused. So it doesn't portray me in the best light at all times. That's an understatement. But yeah, no, I wanted to put my story out there.
So
But
take me back to where your story begins.
oh God. So my mom had me when she was 19, and schizophrenia is in our family. Her father, my grandfather, was schizophrenic. And unlike other mental illnesses, schizophrenia develops a little bit later. It's late teens, early 20s. So she had me at 19. And we grew up together, her schizophrenia and my development. We grew up together. And my first significant trauma happened when I was 5 years old. I witnessed my best girlfriend get sexually assaulted. And then 2 years later, I witnessed a girl drowned. And then a year after that, my grandmother, who had shielded me from my schizophrenic, physically abusive mother, she passed away. So it was just, one thing after another. And you can see like the schizophrenia is passed down, but we're a family that's very stoic and we don't talk about it. In fact, my family doesn't even believe in mental illness. And schizophrenia, I've actually seen my grandfather's discharge papers, his DD 214, I think, from the military, and schizophrenia is listed as one of his retirement reasons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so they knew about it. And my mother, my family just doesn't believe in it. They think it's just made up and that you should just, pretend everything's fine, shove everything under the rug and just move forward. So that just, perpetuates cycles. It allows abuse to continue. My mother was beaten by her parents. I'm sure her parents were beaten. Physical abuse was accepted and normal in my family. I broke that cycle with my daughter. So, and my daughter's 20, and I've never told her this, but I'm absolutely watching for signs of psychotic break, watching to see if she develops schizophrenia. I have a cousin who is schizophrenic. So it's absolutely genetic and it's prevalent in my family. So
How'd you cope with that? How'd you deal with that? Just knowing that.
So at the age of 5, I knew that there was something off with my mom. I knew that she wasn't normal. I didn't have the label for it. I didn't know schizophrenic until much, much later. But my grandmother shielded me. And that's what made her death so traumatic for me. I lost, yeah, I lost my guardian. And then I was susceptible to the full frontal force of my schizophrenic, physically abusive mother. So, yeah.
So dealing with the schizophrenic mom, did that lead you? Was that the start of your addiction, or was that just the start of your trauma?
Start of trauma, actually. My addiction really didn't happen until college. Growing up, education was my escape. School was my escape because it was structured. There were rules, there was routine, you know what was expected of you. And it was my escape mechanism. It was a place for me to get away from my crazy mom who's beating me. And I used books to just escape reality. And I'm sorry, I forgot where I was going with that.
The start of trauma and
Start of
addiction.
trauma. So education, very important, thrived in the environment, went to college. I had my mother, I wasn't in contact with my mother. There was a decade where I didn't know where she was, if she was alive or dead, nothing. And I went to college, and my aunt and uncle, who had helped raise me, so I bounced around. And before I ended up in foster care, I had lived with my Aunt Rose and Uncle John. And they're blue class workers. I'm sorry, blue collar
Blue collar
workers.
workers.
Yeah. My aunt owns a hair salon. My uncle does HVAC. They had no idea about college or what to expect. So I was in the counselor's office in high school, and somebody mentioned that one of the colleges was having honors weekend. And I went to go visit the school, and I spent the night in the girls' dorm, 2 girls, and they took me to a frat party. And I was like, sweet, there's an honors program. I'm at a frat party, sold, yes. I excuse me. So college was, I was going to say it's where I really got introduced to things, but that's not true, because I did a 1-year foreign exchange to Germany in the 11th grade. So coming through all the traumatic events and really horrible foster care, I get this amazing host family. And I asked them what my rule was for drinking. And at 16 in Germany, you're legally an adult. And my host mom said, as long as you can get home by yourself, you can drink however much you want.
Wow.
And it wasn't a problem. Like, my life was really good then, because they were an amazing family. It was a great environment, very supportive, incredibly challenging because I didn't speak the language. Like, when I got there, I could say, my name is, where's the toilet? And, I could count. That was pretty much the extent of my language when I arrived. So here I am in Germany, 16, able to drink all I want, and I don't abuse it. I go to one party, when I was first got there, and my classmates, because in Germany you stay with the same group of students. The students stay as a class, and they got me drunk, which, getting the American exchange student drunk, ha 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 ha, very funny. But I didn't abuse it. I was too busy doing other things. But it was college when I really started going off the rails. I had been in a relationship with a man who was 28 years older than me.
Wow.
Since I was 14 years old. And that was on and off again. So in college, I think combined, take all the trauma, and add in the freedom of really no repercussions, add in
That's a perfect storm for addiction.
yeah, an on again, off again pedophile relationship. And the pedophile and I were broken up, and I met my next door neighbors, and the guy was actually, the way we met, I moved to a luxury apartment complex and I paid for covered parking. It was like an extra $100 a month. And so I go to get my parking spot, and this Mustang's parked there. And so I write this crappy note, this is my spot, don't park in my spot. And I slap it on the car. And then like an hour later, some guy knocks on the door, and he's hot and, has this spiky platinum blonde hair and good looking. Turns out he was a bartender, also attending the same college as me. And he liked to have fun. And he, in hospitality, as I'm sure you know, it's very common for drug use, specifically cocaine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he tried to get me to do it. And I was fine with the binge drinking. I had started that, and I resisted the cocaine for a while, but I eventually caved. And oh my God, I tried it and fell in love.
Yeah, no hangover. You could drink all night and still wake up early the next morning. And yeah.
Well, I would take benzos at the end and knock myself out. I ended up with hangovers. I don't know what I was doing wrong, but I loved it. And I was back together, ditched the bartender boyfriend, back together with Gary, my pedophile lover. And we started doing cocaine together. And he had a really good source because we got premium, like uncut product. And I would do an 8-ball in a day and a half.
Wow.
Yeah. It was extreme.
So when you're in this relationship, did you know it was wrong, or was it just okay, acceptable?
It's a very complicated question. Many, many components to it. Yes, I knew it was wrong. But at the same time, I always felt more mature because I started taking care of myself when I was 7 years old. My schizophrenic mom wasn't doing it. And then my brother came along when I was 9, and I started raising him. So my childhood ended long before I turned 18. So I felt, and sometimes still think, that I had the maturity that you wouldn't expect of a normal 14-year-old. Now,
right.
That said, I can hear how, to anybody listening, it's going to sound like I'm rationalizing a relationship that's clearly, like, if my 20-year-old daughter tried to date someone who is 48 years old, I'd flip and lose it. I threaten to kill the guy. That's just no. That's clear.
Right.
No. But for me, with all of the different things, all of my experience, all of my my maturity, what I was getting from it, yes, I knew it was wrong, but there were things that I needed that was being provided. So, and it wasn't just sex, and it wasn't about money. Because when I was with him, I worked 25 hours at a building supply store. I cleaned 2 beauty shops every weekend. I had 3 houses that I cleaned on rotation. Like, I made my own money. In fact, it was a very important point to me that nobody was ever able to say that I was with him for the money. I wanted to make sure no one could ever claim that. So, yes, I knew it was wrong. I felt like I had extenuating circumstances that validated the relationship and made it okay for me to continue.
Okay,
So,
so leading back up, you just went through all that. Now you're in college again,
mhm.
and that's the start of the height of your addiction, or the start of your addiction to cocaine and alcohol. What happened after that?
So Gary, he was the pedophile lover. Gary and I did cocaine, a lot of cocaine for 5 months. And I had the epiphany that if I did not stop, I was going to ruin my life. And it just came to me just as clearly as that. Adrian, if you go down this road, you will ruin your life. And so I didn't have rehab as an option. It never even entered my mind. But what I did have was a good relationship with my host family in Germany. And what I did is I went over, I finished my spring semester early, 6 weeks early, took all my finals early, and I went over and did a summer semester in Germany with living with my host family. So I went through withdrawal and all the cravings and all of that in Germany. And that's where I got off of cocaine, but I had substituted it with alcohol. So I came back after my semester in Germany, and drinking was a very big part of my life. Um, there was no therapy. I think I was on antidepressants. No, yeah, I was, because as you may know, if you mix like Prozac with alcohol, you get functioning blackout.
Absolutely.
So my drinking is what really screwed my life up.
So
Um,
while you're doing that, are you trying to like drink to not remember anymore, or just drink to cope? Are you drinking to forget,
to numb myself.
to numb?
And partying. There, I was in college. I dated the drummer in a band, so having a good time partying, and as as you know, alcoholics like to surround themselves with other alcoholics because it normalizes the behavior.
Absolutely.
So, I surrounded myself with other people who like to drink, and I didn't drink to just get a buzz. I drank to go into oblivion, to forget everything. And unfortunately for me, I had functioning blackouts. People wouldn't realize it. I was talking, walking, making sense, but nothing was recording in my mind. Like I'd wake up the next day and had no idea what I'd done. In fact, there were two suicide attempts that
Wow.
I did during the functional blackout. Like that's the level of pain and despair that I had in my life at that point, that I
When did you
tried.
realize you had a problem with it?
So 2002, that put me at, I think, 22 years old. I got my first DUI, and it wasn't that big of a deal. I was applying to law school, and the attorney that I got told the judge that. So basically, I just got court costs, a slap on the wrist, don't do it again. Um, but my my relationships, I was dating a guy who was also an alcoholic, not as bad as me, and it it devolved, and I ended up with a second DUI. I thank God every single day that I didn't kill anyone. I have no idea how I mean, it's by the grace of God that I'm here and that I didn't hurt anyone. My second DUI, I was doing 12 miles an hour on the interstate. Um, and when I got
12 miles
pulled,
an hour on the interstate.
yep.
Wow.
And when I got pulled over, I did the breathalyzer. And later on in court, my lawyer, the judge, my lawyer, and me, we were speaking, and they looked at the breathalyzer results, and they said that that had to be wrong. There was no way that could be my actual result because I should have been dead if that was the result. So they decided that the machine was wrong on my analysis. That's how high my blood alcohol content
Wow.
was. Yeah. So it was.
So how'd you get clean and sober? What was that process like? And when did it start? Because I'm sure that wasn't even rock bottom yet.
It came about 2 weeks after that. So that DUI, my family left me in jail for 4 days. I happened to, so I'm in Houston. I was driving to New Orleans. My fiance, the co-drinker, he canceled our wedding a week before it was set to happen. That's what prompted my trip to New Orleans and the binge drinking in that specific episode. And yeah, his friends came over to the house that we were renting, put all of my stuff in the garage, gave me 30 minutes to pick whatever I could take with me, and I was kicked out of the house. I wasn't on the lease, so I had no recourse. My Aunt Rose and Uncle John, I mentioned them earlier. I asked if I could come back and live with them. They said no. And I was forced to go to my other aunt and uncle who are, if I'm being generous, I'll use the term white trash. So like it was, I was so ashamed and desperate. And with my fiance, the co-drinker, I had already known, when a relationship's not, when it's headed for,
When it's almost over.
yeah, exactly. And I had been searching on the internet about being a nanny. It was what I could think of where, it would get me out of the situation. It would get me away from the people. It would be a fresh start. So just like with cocaine, how I got out of the environment, I went to Germany, I got away from the people. That was my thinking behind wanting to go be a nanny. And, just the facts of the case, I was white, I had a bachelor's degree, and I would come work for $800 a month, and that I would get to use the family car, and they gave me a room and a bathroom, and I was a nanny. So they basically plucked me from rock bottom, and I didn't drink. I went to Seattle sober, and it wasn't until he would eventually become my husband, not eventually, about 5 months after we met, he was my husband. He was from England. He didn't know my history with drinking. He didn't understand that I was a very angry, very violent drunk. Some drunks are happy and have a great time. For me, drinking, it took that filter away, and all of the anger, all of the hate, the rage just would flow out of me. It's like taking the bottle stopper out, and it just came out. And I did drink, and once I had our daughter, she was born August 7th, 2005. And November 8th, 2005, I woke up on the floor. I was on the bath mat in the bathroom, And that was the day I decided that I was able to raise my daughter and that I was going to give her a childhood that I didn't get. So November 8th, 2005 is my sobriety date. And I don't do AA or NA. As part of my second DUI, I had to attend a few meetings. I've been there. I don't knock it. If it works for you, great. For me, I just didn't like reveling in the past, is how it felt to me.
Absolutely.
And I just wanted to shut it off. It was like with cocaine. I just said, I don't do drugs. The end. And
Right.
with alcohol, I don't drink. The end. So, and there have been a couple times since then, like on two different occasions, I had one or two glasses of champagne, but it felt like I was flirting with fire, and so I didn't pursue it.
So what kept
Um,
you sober? Was it just willpower, straight willpower, or did you go to any type of any form of other recovery?
I had my daughter, and I was trying to be a role model for her. I knew that if I drank, I was going to ruin not only my life but her life. And I call her my angel. I got pregnant with her the weekend that her dad and I got married. So we didn't get married because I was knocked up. Just to be clear, we got married because he needed a green card. He was from England. He needed a green card. Um, but I had an episode, I think it was 4 years ago, Christmas Eve, where I had just watched my uncle die, and my aunt, not Aunt Rose, the other one, she was dying a horrific death, both of them cancer. And I was just completely overwhelmed. And I went and I bought 2 bottles of champagne. Champagne was my drink of choice. And I got shit faced and blacked out. And I can remember bits and pieces, and I remember laying in bed and just howling, just at the top of my lungs, just howling, because I was in so much pain, so much emotional pain. And of course, it was awful for my husband. And he told me the next day, he said, I'm not going through that again. I I will not be with you if you drink. And I had no intention of drinking, but and I don't even count it really as a lapse. I still consider November 8th, 2005, my sobriety date, but I was just so overwhelmed. I turned to alcohol, and once again, it proved all the same things were true for me. It took that bandage off. It just
Opened up the wound.
exactly, exactly.
So
And
what was one of the biggest life-changing events in your life? What was the biggest life-changing event
my
that you have?
daughter, my
Daughter?
daughter. Are you a parent?
I am. I've got 4 kids. I've got 3 boys and a girl.
Good for you. Then you understand it. It's something, if you don't have kids, you can't really understand. But there's nothing I wouldn't do for my daughter. And giving, having the childhood that I did, I I wanted to give her everything that I didn't get. I wanted her to have a family and support and love. And it didn't work out as well as I had hoped. Her father and we were toxic. We actually ended up getting divorced and stayed divorced for a year. And then he said that he hit rock bottom financially, career wise as well. And he said that he was going to have to leave town and go move back in with his best friend in Seattle. And I told him, don't do that. Come stay on my couch, you know, just be here for your daughter. I couldn't let my daughter lose her father.
Right.
And they were so close. Her name is Abigail, and that's Hebrew for father's joy.
Wow.
And so we got remarried, and we moved to Houston because I was having health issues, and he had the best year of his life. He had an 8 to 5 job. He made our daughter breakfast every morning. He was a professionally trained opera singer. He sang the national anthem at a hockey game up in
Wow.
Seattle. So it was a great year for him and for our daughter. Not for me. I was struggling with health problems, and then he died. So suddenly, overnight, in his sleep from a heart attack, and our daughter was 10 years old. So that really screwed up the perfect childhood that I was trying to give her. But
I know we were talking about triggers earlier. What are some of your triggers and how do you cope with those?
Okay. So reading my manuscript is really effing hard for me. It's very, very hard
Is
because
talking about this triggering?
no,
Okay.
for some reason, like I have like an emotional barrier. There's a wall. Because really what I'm doing is I'm telling stories, I'm recounting events. I'm not delving into really the emotional components
Okay.
of it, which I can, but it's just a natural barrier that I put up. Yeah, when I'm triggered, I it's funny. I have no problem with other people drinking. In fact, I'm an enabler. Like my husband now, and he's happens to be an amazing stepfather for Abigail. But like he'll have an occasional bourbon, and I'm like, have another, have fun, or when we go out, I say, you you have a few drinks, I'll drive home, don't worry about it. Like I want him to have fun. I want people to have fun. Just because I don't drink doesn't mean that I want to like be the buzzkill. That's like the opposite of what I want. I want everyone to have a good time. And it's just something that I've drawn a line in the sand. I don't do it, you know. That it's just as easy as that. I don't think about it. There's no discussion or pro con. It's just a flat line.
Just
I
a
do not,
boundary.
yeah,
Yeah.
I do not cross. And yeah, it was so difficult quitting drinking because it really, so I said it picked up in college. One thing that really contributed to it was the fact that I was a stripper.
Mm.
So bear with me. So I was freshman in college. I went to work at Walmart. I got my 2 weeks paycheck, and it was like $183. And I was taking 18 hours of classes, 2 of which were honors courses. And I was like, there is no way that I can work enough hours at this pay and maintain my class load. So I actually asked one of the guys in one of my classes that I kind of knew, I asked him to take me around to the gentlemen's clubs in Austin. And I applied to be waitresses. So it was the third or fourth club. I liked it. And so I got a job as a waitress there. So here's a joke for you. What's the difference between a stripper and a waitress in a men's club?
I don't know.
2 weeks.
Okay.
So, it was Halloween of 1998. I was a waitress for fun. I dressed, I had the stockings with the garter belt, the bustier bra. I dressed as a stripper for Halloween, thinking, getting a kick out of it. And I I had you see the women or the girls and you look at the money and you say, I'm as pretty as she is. I can do
Right.
that. And so the managers were encouraging me. So I was 20 years old, 19, 19 years old. They took me in the back office and gave me like 4 or 5 vodka shots, just straight vodka. And that's when I started stripping. And in order for me to strip, I had to have at least 5 Bud Lights in me. That
Wow.
was my ritual. I would at the house, I would do my hair, my makeup, lotion, everything, all of that. But on the drive to work, I would drink 5 Bud Lights. And
Wow.
then once I was there, I didn't like keep drinking. It wasn't about, getting shit faced. It was making money. And I learned very quickly, not to sit around at tables. I learned to hustle, do you want to dance? You want to dance? You want to dance? But I couldn't do it sober. I couldn't do it without the alcohol. So that's a pretty big filler, like kind of explains how I devolved from that situation.
So I know we talked about early childhood trauma. How did that play? How much of that did that play a part in your recovery?
Well, I don't know that it really did. I never did AA. I didn't do therapy in my 20s or anything like that. I I would say that having my daughter was the biggest factor in my life. I mean, she changed my entire trajectory. You know, I'm almost certain that had she not come along, I would have gone back to drinking and we wouldn't be sitting here. At least
Right.
I wouldn't be. I'd
Did you,
probably be
what
dead
did
by
you?
now.
Okay, here's a maybe a different question along the same subject. How did you work through the traumas and the abuses, uh, and without the alcohol? Once you got started getting sober and clean, how did you work through all that with still the trauma? I should say.
I didn't really.
Yeah.
Back to that repression and burying things deep down. I'd say most of my work has happened while writing this book. It's been
It's been that
diff-
therapeutic.
it's it's been difficult as fuck, but it, cathartic. Like it really forced me to face my issues and to deal with them, to deal with the emotions and yeah, to stop burying it. So
So how did you unmask and start letting things, putting it out on paper? And how difficult of a process was that actually to relive?
fucking hell, just hell, agony. Just I'd be sobbing and just writing and just sobbing, and I would get overwhelmed and have to take a break. Um, and the book started out as a chronicle of events.
Kind
This
of like
happened, this happened.
journaling.
Well, not journaling because I didn't go into emotions or
Okay.
anything like that. It was a list of events that transpired. And it was when it was time to take that event and turn it into a story, add the emotion, add the characters, add the feelings, add the everything. Take it from a black and white to, putting my heart and soul into it, bearing my soul. Something that, my wall, I had to bring down my wall. And that's actually a metaphor I use in my book, that each trauma is a brick, and my tears mixed with the mortar, and I would just build, brick and mortar over and over, and I built a wall that I couldn't see over anymore. And writing forced me to take that wall down. It forced me to confront the things that I really didn't want to, like my pedophile lover, confronting that, saying, yeah, I am the victim of a pedophile. And that's something that until right now, this second, I haven't been able to say. So it was awful. And for anyone who's thinking about writing, if they've gone through trauma, absolutely have a strong support network in place before you start writing. You're going to need it. I had my husband and my Aunt Rose and my best friend that I've known since 8th grade. But it was just brutal. And my book is hard. It's not an easy read. And there are chapters where you read it and you're like, oh, fuck. That was heavy. That was hard. And I actually told my husband recently, I said, I could take those chapters and I could lighten them up. I could add in stories to bring levity, to get a chuckle, to break it up. And I said, I'm not going to do that. And I think the reason I'm not doing it is because I want the reader to feel just a tiny bit of the pain, the hell that I went through. I want them to experience a little bit of my pain. And I don't know. Oh,
go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Oh, I was just saying, I don't know what that means. I'm not a psychologist, but I would say keep reading. The book is about hope. It is about resilience. It's about overcoming shit that nobody should ever have to go through. But I did come out the other side. I am sober. I am living a life now that I never thought I could have. Like I am so blessed. And I want to be the person that people point to and say, if she can go through all of that and come out the other side, then I can too. I can do it as well.
What's one of the most valuable lessons you've learned through this process?
Forgiveness.
Have you been able to forgive everybody in your life that affected you yet?
No.
Who are some of the people that you need to forgive?
The foster parent. She dehumanized us. Just some quick examples. We were not allowed to sit on the furniture. We had to sit on the floor like animals. We used separate dishes and utensils, separate food. The house was a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bathroom. So the 4 to 7 foster girls shared the master that had a toilet and sink, had a half bath. And that was our toilet. When we went into the full bathroom, we were not allowed to use their toilet. Wow. And the last foster girl to take a shower had to clean the tub with bleach before the foster family would take a shower or take a bath in it. Like, we were dehumanized.
Treated like animals.
Yes, animals get treated better than
Wow.
what she did to us. And you know, this is how effed up she was. I came out one time to show her a swimsuit. I was trying on swimsuits, and she said, "Your thighs are fat. I'm surprised you haven't started throwing up to lose weight." And that started a 35-year battle with bulimia that I struggle with to this day. And then another episode, something happened, and I took my razor apart and I cut my wrists. And she looked at it and she said, "You didn't even do it right. You're supposed to cut along the vein, not across it." So I generally
what are you most
believe
grateful for today?
Most grateful for today. That's a good. There's so much in my life that I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for my daughter, for my husband. Um, my health has been on an uptick. I became medically disabled at the age of 35 due to rheumatoid arthritis. I cover that in book 2. But I live such a blessed life now. I mean, I live in, and I'm near my family, my Aunt Rose and Uncle John. I say that God didn't give me a mom and a dad. God gave me 2 moms, and that's my Aunt Rose, and she is a huge part of my life. So I can't name just one thing. If you had told the 15-year-old Adrienne that this is the life that she would end up having, the 15-year-old Adrienne would have called you a liar, because there's no way she could have conceived in her brain that it could be this good. Like,
My final question is going to be, there's one thing you want anybody to take away from this podcast and your story. What would that be?
That you can overcome your addictions. It is possible to beat it. It's not easy. It's fucking hard as hell. And you might fail. You might fail. Just start over. Try, it's one day at a time. And if you fall off the wagon, get back on. Just do not quitting. So.
And tell me about your book again and where we can get it.
So it's Unbroken: Life Outside the Lines. Actually, if you want to read like my CPS case files or psych evals or letters and therapist notes, you can go to my website, Unbroken Caldwell. I'm on Facebook and Insta at Unbroken Caldwell. And the book comes out March 17th. And I'll be hosting a live Facebook stream. So
awesome. Yeah. I'm going to have to friend you on Facebook just so I can be there.
I would love it. I would love it.
Well, thank you, Adrienne. I want to just thank you for coming on the show and sharing some of your experiences. I know we haven't even skimmed the surface of them, but I really do appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your experiences and a little bit of a hope.
Well, I hope that came through, because ultimately that's what this is about. It's about giving people hope, giving them a light at the end of the tunnel, that your life's not always going to be this way, that the decisions you make today are going to impact the life that you have tomorrow, and you have more power than you realize.
Thank you again. And until next time, that's Rock and Recovery. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. I want to thank Adrienne again. Adrienne, your book is Unbroken: Living Outside the Lines, Living a Life Outside the Lines.
life outside the lines.
Life
You
outside the
got
line.
close. You got close.
I was close. You got to give me credit. I was close.
You do. That counts.
All right. Oh, well, thank you again, Adrienne. It was a pleasure having you on. I really appreciate you coming on. And everybody else, we're out of here. Keep rocking your recovery.